We appreciate you all joining us this morning, and welcome to our program. The focus of the program is to help you sustain the learning for your organizations and make sure that everybody is having the best learning experience possible. My name is Jay Sullivan. I am the managing partner of Exec-Comm, and I want to thank all of you for being here today to help us celebrate. Today is the capstone of our 30th anniversary. And we welcome all of you. Some of you we've worked with your organizations for the entire 30 years of our existence. Back in the early 1980s, Rich McKay, with the help of his lovely wife Judy, started Exec-Comm. And he started with a writing program and with a presentation program and with an enormous file of acetates to go on overhead projectors. And because he's Rich McKay, sometimes he even brought the overhead projector with him to the program to be as helpful as possible to our clients. And he taught all the programs because it was just him. Well, a lot's happened in the last 30 years. We're now 50 people strong. We have a whole panoply of programs: writing, negotiating, client development skills, presentation skills, influencing skills, marketing skills, leadership skills. We have a presence on the East Coast and the West Coast. We're developing leaders for you and teaching resources for you this year in Asia and in Europe. We're entering into an agreement with an organization in Latin America to help meet your needs in Latin America as well. We're looking at technology as a way of helping you get learning and training out to the people in your organizations and sustain that learning long term. So a lot's happened over the last 30 years. But a couple things haven't changed. We're still a skills organization, and we still believe that you have to practice things in order to own those skills. And there's still a fundamental principle that underlies all of our classes, everything that we teach, no matter what the content is. The theme underlying all the classes is the same. And the theme is that you're more effective as a communicator if ultimately you're less focused on yourself and more focused on the other person. So what we do day in and day out is help people become less wrapped up in themselves and focus instead on the other person, the person reading their email, the person listening to their presentation, the person participating in their meeting, and thinking about, how is this person receiving this information? How is this person able to grow because of the conversation? And the goal is always to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And if you think about shoes, one of the first skills that we all learn as children, the first complex skills, is we learn how to tie our shoes. And it's a complicated skill. My first job out of college was as a high school English teacher, and one of the classic essays you give students to write in English class in high school is write out the instructions for how to tie your shoes. It becomes an incredibly cumbersome task when you think about how to write out the directions for how to tie your shoes. And then what you do is you bring one of your students to the front of the room, and you give him the instructions that one of his classmates has written out. And he tries to follow those instructions, and it never works. Because part of what you're also trying to teach people is that some things you don't learn by reading about them. You learn by doing them. You don't learn to ride a bike by reading a book on how to ride a bike. You get on the bike and go. You don't learn to tie your shoes by reading instructions. You have an adult bend over you and show you time and time again how to tie your shoes. And if you think about the way adults teach children how to tie their shoes, it's an incredibly beautiful process. Because parents don't get frustrated when they're teaching their kids to tie their shoes, because they know how hard it is and how much the kid is trying and how much concentration is going into it. And you can see the concentration and the frustration on the kid's face. And the first couple times, the bow is too loose. And the next couple times, the laces get tied up in a knot. And along the way, sometimes the kid gets tied up in a knot. And you're trying to help them along in the process. My wife and I have 4 kids. We had 4 kids in 5 years, so we tied a lot of shoes at one point. I don't know who came up with the idea of Velcro on kids' shoes, but God love her, because it saved our mornings, a lot of mornings. But eventually your kids do learn how to tie their shoes. And then they build more complex skills. My kids have learned how to cook, and they're pretty good at it. They've learned how to drive. Well, they've learned how to drive. I'm not going to say they're pretty good at that. But all the while, they've learned how to build skills by keeping at it and keeping working hard at a skill and repeating that skill in order to really own it. And now when we drop them off at college, or they get out the door of the car when we drop them off at high school, they're getting out with a whole new set of skills they've built over the years, and with their shoes very neatly tied. So what we're going to do today is talk about learning as a lifelong process. You're all here because you're learning and training and development professionals. And yet you realize that we all still have a lot more to learn about learning. So with that said, we're going to start this morning with a quick video that our own Dan Vicente put together about the nature of learning. Dan?